afternoon and welcome to episode 87, I think it is, of UncommonCents. Welcoming Deepa today in our home, live today. So thank you, Deepa, for coming and joining us. We hope everyone can hear us and see us. We're testing technology as we normally do to try to make sure things work, but we're also separately recording it and there'll be a B-roll if something fails, Deepa. But tell us a little bit about you and your journey to get us warmed up.
So Recruit Talent, I started Recruit Talent about 8 years ago, and it was just off the back of, I guess, my passion for finding talent. And I just developed this business that can assist employers make hiring decisions, but actually help them make those decisions and help them with right hires. So I'm all about talent and passion and finding people that meet what clients are looking for.
Awesome. So we're going to go through a lot of the detail today to find out what it's like to really hire people and the war stories of what goes right and wrong. My story is that we ran into each other digitally about 16 years ago in terms of our journey of finding a recruitment talent. We've had a great relationship over the years in trying to find people for great businesses.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you do really well is actually understand who the business is.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that first start of the process in terms of the work that you do. Why is it so important to understand the business first before you go into the detail of trying to place a candidate?
Because for me, I won't go to market or I won't go and start talking to people unless I know what my clients are looking for. Because at the end of the day, they know what they want, but they've got to be clear on what they want. Because don't be wishy-washy about, oh, I think I want this, I think I want that. You have to be very clear up front what you want. And then it's important to give people like myself, recruiters, consultants, whoever you use, a good brief so that we can do our job.
And most advisors, they're not good at giving the brief. So what makes a good brief in order for advisors to start thinking about what do they need to tell their recruitment specialists about the business or the role?
I think it goes two ways. I think that the employer has a very big part, but your recruiter needs to be able to uncover that as well. And so that's about the questioning that we do as recruiters. We need to ask the right questions. We've done this time and time again. You need to understand and talk to business and say, what's worked for you in the past? What hasn't worked for you? Trying to uncover what you really want, because this is going to allow someone like me to be able to go to market and talk to candidates and not waste your time. You're coming to a consultant for a reason, and that is to minimize the time you spend on the recruitment. And so allowing us to adapt to what you're looking for as well. Key is getting it right from the beginning.
And so this is all about taking all that information and distilling it down to a job ad in its very simple thing. Is that the only way that a candidate can firstly find out about the business is the job ad. And so talk to us about what goes into that. Why is that story really important? Because some of the advisors in this world are in the DIY. So they will put their own ad up on LinkedIn or they put their own ad up on Seek, which can work.
Yes.
What is it about that kind of job advertisement that sucks people in?
The job ad is typically derived from your job description, and so it should be a good reflection of your business and what you're looking for. But I spend a lot of time getting that job ad right. It's only one way of trying to source people, but the point is that you want to be able to draw people in from that ad, and it's actually the first representation of the business as well. And if it's well written and it's well branded, so even if it's a company that's doing their own recruitment, they should write their ad as a reflection of their brand. Whereas me, I've got a fairly structured approach to how I write it. And that's a reflection of my brand and how I operate. I'm a very structured person, so I will get structure in my ad.
And so how does that work in terms of, do you say the company that you're recruiting for in the first instance? No.
Because what will happen is if you've got an employer that engages a recruiter, they're asking you to keep they're using a recruiter to actually keep that confidentiality up front. And if you don't do that, if you put the company name, chances are candidate's going to ring the client directly or the employer directly. So then there's a lot of that bypass, and the employers might get stuck going, I don't know what to say to these people. They might feel compelled to talk to the person themselves, and they might just say the wrong thing at that point. And so the purpose of trying to use somebody externally is to mitigate any risks of just asking the wrong questions or telling the wrong story. Because at the end of the day, I was just going back to the brief is important because you want to tell the right story.
Yep.
And you want to be consistent in that story.
Okay. And so if we're trying to just work through this recruitment process. And so whether you're doing it on your own or you're doing it with a recruiter, job description, and I need a paraplanner or I need a advisor support is not enough in these examples. So we really have to be clear on what we want in terms of that job description. And do you help advisors craft that job description for what's going on in the market?
Yeah, look, I typically say to the employers that I don't know what your person is doing on a day-to-day basis, and what could be a client service person for one business could be different to another. And so you need to adapt the job description to the person that you really want. I can help them with that process because I've recruited lots of these types of roles. But at the end of the day, you need to adapt to what your business actually needs and be specific about what you want. Financial planning practices or any businesses, they run differently. The cultures are different, the management's different, the structure's different. So that's the stuff that you don't put it in a job description. The job description is actually your brief, if you like. But what candidates look at is that's one of your best, that's your sales tool. For an employer in a competitive market, candidates are looking for information, and the more information you can provide them, and the best place is in the job description as well.
And so if we're thinking about hiring the best person and the best talent, they probably have a choice of jobs. So if I think of LinkedIn, there's currently, let's just pick a number, but there's probably 50 jobs out there right now, either for financial advisors, paraplanners, or support staff. And so the best candidates out there are actually reading the ad, seeking the job description, and then not choosing to apply because of that. And so you're not even getting the chance to interview them because they're opting out earlier on in the process.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when do they find out about who the company is?
It depends. Usually I would get that, I would allow, or I would actually give that information in the first phone call, but I will only do it if I just actually qualify the candidate, make sure they're actually right for what the client or the employer is looking. Because if they've got skills that are just not right for them, I'm not going to divulge who it is. Because again, if I reject them on a phone call and those candidates think they're fantastic and I tell them who the company is, what are they going to do? They might ring you directly. Correct. Absolutely. And so that, again, it's about mitigating the risk.
Yep, absolutely. And so learning from this process as we go, and especially in terms of the role of a recruiter, what's the average number of applications that you might get for a role in Sydney?
It depends on the role. I'll give you an example. A role put up 2 weeks ago. I've got 150 applications and they're still going, but we've already filled the job.
And so so we got 150 applications and the job got filled relatively quickly. And say the job didn't get filled quickly. And so I'm trying to contrast DIY versus do it with someone as well, is that you or someone else has to go through 150 applications to try to work out which 10 to call, 5 to call. What would you normally like to do?
I put some stringent screening questions on before I do that. And so the first place I go to is my screening questions. Because if they're off the mark in terms of salary, or they don't even have rights to work. So if they don't even have a visa, they just haven't got the right to work, they're not citizens, or they can't physically work in this country because they just legally don't. Straight away, you can't take them forward. Most employers don't really want to go down the path of having to go through the visa approval and sponsor.
So those screening questions are through Seek, for example. So it comes through Seek. So you get that information, which is helping you reduce this list to an appropriate amount.
But it's also, you can also do that on LinkedIn. That's why, just going back to what we said before, it's so important to set it up right from the beginning so that you're getting the right type of people and you're mitigating the wrong, but you're trying to just avoid people that just don't meet the requirements, to try and hopefully they don't apply. But to go back to your question of on average applicants, it does come down to the role. Paraplanners, you're probably not going to get as many people to respond. Then advisors, same sort of thing, but client service people, we're going to get a few more people. But it also depends if you want skills for that, if they need existing experience for the role. Because if they don't need existing experience, then you're going to get a higher applicant pool.
Yeah, which obviously goes back to that, the requirements to do a really good ad and job description, because if you want experience but fail to put it in the ad for any reason, then you're going to get a lot of candidates.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And so let's continue that process. So now you've got a list of, say, 5 to 10 that you want to get in contact to find more information. What's your typical process at that point in time, and what are you trying to learn on the phone call with those candidates?
The first thing I guess I'm trying to learn is initial suitability for the role. And I actually try and dig into the why and what appealed to them and where they're at with their career journey. Why do they want to leave? And I quite often put in the front end of the campaign, just assume that you're going to get counteroffered.
Yep.
If you're a good candidate and you've been with a company for such a long time, whatever your reasons are for leaving, you're probably going to get counteroffered. And I try and do that very early on because I don't want to waste anybody's time. It's a long process. It can get really tedious and very massive headaches because people tell you one thing and they do something else. But for me, it's always about mitigating the risk from the beginning and trying to get it right from the beginning so that when you present candidates or when I present candidates to employers, I might only put 2 in front of the company, but I want to make sure that they're the right people for what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sometimes a bit of a struggle for advisors, I think, the idea that you might have told them at some point, oh, I've got 150 applicants, and then you only let me see 2.
Yes.
But what else is out there? And you probably have to trust in the process a little bit more as a result. One of the things that I'd like to talk to you about is this counteroffer thing that you spoke of. So you have a statistic, which is if an employee applies for a job, but then actually gets counteroffered with their existing employer, so they get a pay rise to stay, essentially.
Yep.
They're still most likely to leave in what?
At about 6 months.
Yeah.
So about 60 to 70%, once they've been counteroffered, they'll end up leaving within 6 months.
Because
there's that 20% that will stay.
Yeah. But that's still, it's still high. And so that's a lesson both for you as the employer that potentially losing a staff member. So you've got a staff member that's been looking around.
Yes.
They got an offer. They come and tell you, you say, I'll pay you $10,000 to stay. In 6 months' time, they're still going to leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Statistics say that. Yeah.
And the lesson there is because the reason why they're thinking about leaving, those things haven't changed. Correct. Because people don't leave for money.
Yeah. But I think it's insulting because you've got to this point where you think, I want to leave this company for these reasons. Now, the reasons could be I'm not getting paid what I should be paid, or I'm not getting the training that they told me I'm going to get. And it's allowed me to go, I'm actually going to look at externally to get that. Another Mr. New employer comes along, gives you the money that you're worth, and is going to give you the training that you want or whatever. And then you go to your existing employer and saying, oh, I've actually found somebody that's going to do it. And then they turn around and say, actually, we'll give you that money now. So I think it's quite insulting.
Yeah.
You've had to get to that point to leave for them to realise they don't want to lose you and they don't want to lose you. Yeah.
And that's something we might come back to, just the reviewing of employees over time, just how you need to do that to keep candidates, to keep your employees within the business. And so anyway, so back to this phone call, you're making the phone call to the 10, you're trying to understand whether they're suitable for the role, they've got the right cultural mix for the business's culture.
Yep.
What else is coming at that call before you make the view?
If I believe they're suitable, I will then take it to the next stage and say, okay, let me send you a job description of the role. I would like you to do a bit of research on the company, the role. Is this what you want?
Yep.
And then if you're happy to do that, absolutely, we book in a time to have a further conversation. But 9 out of 10 chances I will know in that phone call whether they're going to be right and whether we go to the next stage, and then we go to the next, I would go to an interview. And then my interviews are very in-depth. I will spend a good hour on the phone or I don't really do face-to-face, but usually on the phone or on a video call or whatever, I will put a behavioural interview as part of the process, because my job as a consultant is to uncover the skills and capabilities of the candidate and make sure that they are a skills match for what the client's looking for.
Yep. And so that's the point there, is that you're doing this 1 hour interview not the employer. The employers, this is before you put a candidate forward.
Before I put them in front of the
Mm.
client, because as we were saying, that you could get a big pool of candidates, but my job is to cut them down so that I can put the best, who I believe, in front of the client. But I also have a bit of leeway because I know that other applications and other people will come along, or if I'm already talking to my network, there's going to be other people coming along and I get referrals, and, you know, I will always introduce them as part of the mix. But in this market, depending on the role, if you get great candidates in the first week or two, you can't just wait for a shortlist. You do need to put them in front of employer, because as you said before, what we talked about before is that if they're already talking to me and they're looking, they're talking to other clients as well. They're talking to other employers.
They're not just interviewing with you, they're doing lots of interviews. And so this is where it's tricky. Of time is of the essence, in that you can't do. This is the reason why I don't think you can always do it on your own, because the speed at which you need to be able to close this whilst doing your day job as an advisor is tricky. And if you meet someone today that's already 2 weeks into a recruitment process with another business, you
probably lost them.
You may have lost them. Or you have to really speed up your process in order to do it. And that goes sometimes against this old saying of hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah.
And so that's our challenge.
Yeah, 100%. And I see this happening a lot. And so that's why my biggest, can I call it advice? My biggest advice to employers is to know that when you are looking to hire, just remember you're not necessarily the person in the hot seat. Because if you're in a market that is very competitive, the candidates are interviewing you as well, because they're meeting other practices, they're meeting other companies. And again, going back to the setup is really important. And that's why it's good to have an external person do it for you, because they're a best representation of your business. And that's what we're trained to do. We want to put the right people in front of our, let's call it clients, so that they don't have to do it and they don't have to have the headache of figuring out, is this person right or this person's wrong? But I always advise my employers that, look, they're interviewing elsewhere. And so make sure that they have a very good candidate journey along the way. And the candidate journey starts from that job description and all the way through to the interview stage.
Okay, so you've gone through your interviews. You're then putting the one or two in front of the advisor or the business. Are you interviewing with the advisor then, or how does that work in your world?
In my world, it depends on who the client is, because, and I'm seeing this a lot with financial planning practices, particularly smaller practices, they don't have any recruitment experience. And so they don't know what to do. And so part of my model is to help those businesses if they just want that extra assistance. And what I will do is actually interview with them. And so I say to the employer, please let me run it, and I will do all the talking, and then allow them to ask the technical questions, anything relevant to the job that they want filled, and then just try and have an open discussion with the candidate and the employer, knowing that I've already spent a lot of time
with that person
already. So I guess my job is I'm round one, essentially, and then I put them in front of the employer. Now, sometimes the employer just relies on that. I quite often say, don't just rely on that. If you're not sure, get your business coach in, or get a trusted partner in, or somebody else that knows you as well, because you want to make sure that they're the right energetic match for you as well. Skill sets is one thing, but it's also making sure you connect with that person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we learn from the larger businesses would have someone from HR and the subject matter expert department, be it IT or engineering or finance, joint interviewing. And it's the struggle of the small business owner to realize that they're not the best in the world at all of these type of areas. And so partnering with someone gives us that ability to ask different questions. What about doing a psychometric test?
I'm not the expert in psychometric testing, but I believe testing has a role to play, but you've got to put it in as part of the recruitment process. I've seen organisations that rely heavily on psychometric testing, got the perfect candidate, but they bomb out in a psychometric test. But what does this bombing out mean? I know you would run a test for a candidate and you want to see that they best match an existing profile of a great candidate that you already got in the business. And that's all well and good. But what happens if they do really bad? Let's just say you're in a market where there's like a handful of paraplanners out there and you finally found a gem and they bomb out in the test. Are you going to say no?
And
that's the question.
Correct. And so we have that ongoing challenge.
Absolutely.
Is that I have had in my experience of doing the testing with Mark is that the times that I've overruled the test with my gut, sometimes that comes back to bite you, and you should have listened to the test results. But also, you're the barometer of lots of different testing at the end of the day to get them in front of the candidate.
Yeah. And sometimes people just are not good at doing tests, but they're really good at their job. And I can specifically think of a case that, years ago with one of my clients that was working at Macquarie Bank at the time, and exactly the same thing happened. He was very senior, wanted a paraplanner, but didn't do well in the test. So this guy had to go to the top to get this person into the business.
Because they
didn't do well in the test, but star performer.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I would just say just use it as part of the whole recruitment process. And like you said before,
there's a benefit of the gut, but a danger of the gut as well. So we've learned both ways on that. And so say we do the interview, you've done an interview, we do a joint interview, we go and want to do the letter of offer and things like that.
Yeah.
Is this the time when we can get gazumped and they take that back to their employer? Is this when it normally happens, at the point at which you want to offer them the job, then we get this counteroffer game starting?
It depends. I always say to my candidates, wait for your contract, I like to make sure it's all ready to go. But yeah, it can happen at that point. And that's when I like to say to my clients, if they're worth more and you've got the budget and you can do it up front, give your best offer up front. But if there's a bit of wiggle room and then you know that they're going to get counteroffered, if they get counteroffered by 10 grand or something, or you've got an extra 10K in your budget, the chances, this is where the recruiter's skill comes in, where we've got to be able to talk to the candidate and what were the reasons why you wanted to leave in the first place, and look, statistics show, and go down that path. And 9 out of 10 times at that point, I go, yeah, you know what, you're right. Yeah. But you know what, the money's too good. Yeah. And so then that's the point where in that situation, I would say, if I went back to my employer, or went back to my client and we got you that extra money, what would you do? And they'd probably say, I'd leave.
Yeah.
Depends. And if they leave, but then I will also say, we've only got one shot at this. I'm only doing this once. We're not going through a negotiation battle. Are you ready to leave if this happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not doing an auction at the end of the day to try to raise the price up.
It's not fair. It's not fair, and it's not fair to the employer that really wants this person. They know it's right. The gut feel is right. They've ticked all the boxes. They've got all the skills, the reasons why they're leaving. It's all still there. And like most of the time, it's money that people stay back. But if you can get them that more money, they're happy.
Yep. And so you get that commitment. But this is why in the past I've felt this pressure from you to get the contract out. And so because the contract gives the employee confidence that what we're promising will actually be a reality, and they've got something firm to give them confidence to resign.
Yeah.
And if it results in one more negotiation around salary, fine. But that's it.
Yeah, because what happens is once you've got to that point where you've been offered, you've mentally already switched off.
Yeah, correct.
And you're ready to go.
Yep.
And I do believe in speed of process at the right time. Sitting on a contract and waiting for a week is not okay. Like, what happens at that point if they haven't physically got a contract
and somebody else
comes along?
Yep.
What are you going to do?
Get your contract ready at the start.
That's why it's all set up in the beginning. Get it right. Get your contract. Have it already. Sure, modifications can take place a bit later down the track, but just be ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one of the things that just came up for me yesterday is timeframes to get someone to hire, to get some like a bum on seat.
Yeah.
Before Christmas. So we're now in August.
Yeah.
So help me understand the kind of the cycle of recruitment, because there comes a point in time where everyone will sit on their hands and not leave because there's a break coming, be it Christmas or school holidays or something. What do you see in the flow of employment?
Traditionally, and this is pre-COVID, was a completely different game changer, but now we're back to normality. I find that I'm really busy up until mid-November, because then everyone's in party mode and not really looking for jobs at that point. It tends to slow down mid to late November.
Okay.
But then I don't see market picking up again till about a good February. School holidays, people go back to work. You know, they've New Year's resolutions, I hate my job, or I didn't get the bonus that I wanted at the end of the year. Therefore, I'm now going to start to look.
Yeah. And so that, just going back, if we're thinking about you're busy until, say, the middle of November, that means you're doing job offers the middle of November, and that employee therefore might start before Christmas.
No.
Most likely agree to work up until 20th of December with their current employer, start fresh in January.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so therefore, in order to issue a contract on the 15th of November, in order to get that outcome of already mid-Jan. So that's so far in advance. How soon do we have to have started the process in order to set that journey?
Okay. Look, sorry, just also, even though you might say, let's get the job done, but like just you've hired somebody by mid-November, they might be immediately available, then you can start them in November. So that can actually happen as well. And to be honest, that could be your training ground as well, and just get them into the business, and then January comes along and then they're ready to go. So you have to start, depending on the role, at least 4 to 6 weeks before.
Yep.
Actually, about 4 to 6 weeks before, because it's a campaign goes for about 4 to 6 weeks. Then they need 2 to 4 weeks notice period, and then they can start.
There. So if we're not thinking about this in the month of September to put a job ad up on the 1st of October, you may not have anyone until you can restart the process in February. Yeah. And then you might have someone in the middle of March. Yep. And whenever Easter's falling, you might have further implications as a result. Yeah. And so that is a really good kind of thing for everyone to remember about how long it can take
a while
to get someone. And this is if the perfect candidate comes along relatively quickly in that process. At different points in time, you may not find a candidate and have to pause for a while, wait till the next season.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but you can be really lucky and get the candidate that you want straight away. So then you just say, okay, I'll start them earlier. It's one of those you can't predict. You just can't predict.
Absolutely. And so I would always encourage people to be thinking about hiring earlier, sooner rather than later. And that goes to a capacity thing. You're thinking about hiring because you've got extra capacity. Yeah. If you lose an employee, you have to be ready to advertise straight away, but that's a different scenario. Yeah. But this growth scenario is start sooner so that you can hire slow. You've got the choice to hire slow. Yeah. Whereas if you lose an employee, you've got 4 weeks to replace them. Yeah. Otherwise,
and then it's very reactive, and then you can make wrong decisions. And you know what? I really like you, but can you do the job? And so you could get into this situation where you go, this person's a great personality fit, but my question is, can they do the job that you want them to do? Because if you hire too fast as well and hiring for the wrong reasons, you could be stuffed a few months down the track because they haven't worked out and you're back to square one and you've just spent all this money and time and training.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you call the placed candidates a month or 2 months into their job with the new employer? I'm not sure if all recruiters do that, if that's normal or not, but what are you doing in that call?
I'm just, you know what, I just like to keep in touch with my candidates and the clients. At the end of the day, the clients are, hopefully we get repetitive work from them as well, but it's also keeping me engaged in knowing what's going on in their business. And I just fundamentally like the fact that I like keeping in touch with the people that I've worked with over the years. And I think it's worked for me in terms of if I stay in touch with people, they're always going to think of me. If they're looking again to leave, or if the employer's looking again, who they're going to go to? It's the person that keeps in touch with me all the time. And it just could be a 5-minute phone call. How's John Smith going? How are they going? How are they settling in? Once once somebody's placed and they're working for the employer, ultimately the responsibility is the employer because they've got to take care of them. It's all about their onboarding, making sure the candidate is happy. They've got to manage them.
Absolutely. And so a couple of things about the tenure, like employees turn over every 2 years, or you've got an employee that stays for 10. And how do you like to work with candidates and employers, and how maybe is that different to the industry?
You mean?
Just in terms of how you like to work on a more of a retainer model than the percentage of salary model, and how that kind of incentive meets everyone in the middle in terms of the effort that you put in versus the percentage of salary.
Oh, okay. So I do work on a more of a retainer type thing, because I think that if you're an employer and you give a role out to multiple recruiters, I get concerned about how well a job they're going to do. Because if it's just me and I'm just working for you and I've got a good relationship with you, let me do my job and let me find you the best people that I know are going to suit what you want. But if you've gone and briefed maybe a few other recruiters, they could probably see the same candidates, and all these candidates are being represented by different parties, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so it can just get a bit ugly in terms of that. It gets competitive. Candidates get confused. I don't know who's representing me.
Yeah, and I feel like in this model, you work for the employer.
Correct.
Whereas sometimes I feel like the recruiters who send me, I often get sent resumes like with the name whited out. Like I can't find out who they are because they've got their current employer in it. But the idea that you get sent resumes on an unsolicited basis, I feel like that is just they're representing the candidate to try to find them a job, whereas you're representing the employer to try to get a solution for our business.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But at the same time, I really want the best interest of the candidate as well.
Of the best candidate.
Yeah, but look, if a client is engaging me on a retainer, I will not do a rush job, and I want to make sure that they're getting the right person in front of them. And you know what? Quite often it does happen. You can't always get the right person. Like so many of my clients will say, so I want this 10 list of attributes in this person. And I'll try and get you those 10. But would you look at somebody that's actually got 7 out of 10? Can you train these elements? Because you might get somebody that's got 7 out of 10 of those characteristics. The other 3, are you willing to train them? Because you know what? You may not have to pay as much, but you could probably invest in their training. And if they're a candidate that's got the passion, they want to step up, they want a new opportunity, and you've just given them the right opportunity, and their skills are transferable.
Oh, absolutely. I also think that sometimes when people would say those 10 things, those 10 things they're describing a unicorn. So the 10 don't exist. But also they're like, sometimes the 10 are in conflict with one another and they don't really realize it. Like they say, I want someone to high attention to detail that can have great conversations with clients. And those two things don't always go hand in hand. You either want someone that's potentially like an introvert that's high on the details, or you want an extrovert to go and do your sales.
Yeah.
To find it all great. So that's why I call it a unicorn, because I'm not sure if they exist in that process. I've seen a couple of financial planning businesses who are doing a lot of work predominantly on LinkedIn to brand themselves as great employers of choice.
Yeah.
Tell us, they know who they are, and most people know who they are. Yeah. Why is that important in this current environment to find talent?
Because if they're the employers that, say, for instance, those financial planning practices are going out and branding their businesses, they're already leaving an impression to the candidates. And I've seen situations where candidates are waiting for that employer to put a opportunity up and they're pouncing on it.
Yep.
And it's the perfect match because the branding it's a reflection of the business. Yep. And candidates might be just waiting and hanging out for them to say, hey, I'm actually hiring. Then you know what? You don't need someone like me because they've just gone direct. And it's the perfect opportunity.
And there's probably already a mixed merging of the values. Yes. If I look at one of the brands and I'm an advisor and I look at it and go, love to work for that business one day, there's obviously already a connection. then there's some messaging around it's a great place to work, or you don't have to do admin or something like that. And you go, when there's a job open there, I'm going to put my hand up and apply. And that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And the insight that I have around this is these firms are not 50 or 100 person firms that are doing this work. They're smaller.
Yeah.
And so all of us can be this concept, which is always be hiring, is to make sure that we've always got a presence almost to say that we are looking for great people to join us in the future and talk a little bit about it.
And that's in a way building your own applicant pool, because you're already starting a relationship. We're talking about starting early or understanding what you need early. So that's actually building your presence, building your branding, and you've already built an applicant pool. And so if they're already following you and then all of a sudden you go, you know what, I'm actually looking for such and such, they're going to take you.
Yeah.
But if you're a standout applicant, your values aligned and the role or the company is great for you, and the employer thinks, you know what, I've just got to find the budget, or somehow can I bring them into the business? Could be a delayed start or whatever. You already got your values aligned. There might be something there. Like you might be able to just, if you can find the budget, and then the justification around that would be, you know what, if I actually invest in that person, I'm actually going to grow my business anyway. So they're going to increase my revenue.
Exactly. And that's hiring people is an investment, and sometimes the extra salary that you pay them, you have to think about it as that's the long-term investment in not only your people, but the long-term investment in your business at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think from an employer's point of view, if they're looking to hire and they've got a choice. They can either do it themselves or they can employ somebody to do it with them. Just make sure you're comfortable with the partner that you're choosing. I think it's important that your values are aligned with your partner as well, because I do this as well. I actually interview the clients that I want to work with, because I don't want to deal with clients that have got bad reputation, high turnover. I want to know that I really believe in what your business is about.
Because you're placing a candidate.
I'm placing it, but I'm also representing you. And so for me, if it's a toxic environment or there's high turnover, I've got my guard up already going, is this going to be difficult for me to find somebody for your business? And at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the candidates find a happy home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you, Deepa. That was a good session of giving us the idea of the journey from start to beginning of the steps in terms of recruitment, whether you are embarking on doing it yourself or doing it with a partner, understanding some of the war stories, and importantly, understanding the counteroffers.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a danger area probably at the moment because it's a tight market. And starting earlier seems to be the process of getting your ducks in order of contract and job description and all of that before you're advertising.
Yeah.
But then obviously moving relatively quickly through the process once you've started to secure that candidate.
Yeah. And look, you can always, whoever you're using as your partner, start thinking about it earlier. And you know what? If you're talking to an external partner to help you, they just might find somebody. You might be 3 months away, but somebody might just fall in their lap a bit earlier, and boom, you just pounce and problem solved.
Problem solved. Thanks, Deepa. Everyone can find out about Deepa online as well. We'll put the transcript in the notes below and when it's on YouTube. And thanks very much for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers.